Good morning and welcome again to Word of Faith Responds. This is Mark Morris with Word of Faith Fellowship. Thank you again for joining us. We have been sharing with you so many wonderful things that God has done in our lives at the Word of Faith Fellowship. We've been doing this program now for going on 9 months. We started it in December, and it's amazing to us that we've kept going, but there's so much to share with you about what God has done in our lives. And one of the things that we have done is share testimonies about how God has transformed our lives. And if you want to hear some of our past radio programs, you can actually go to our church website, which is wordoffaithfellowship.org. That's wordoffaithfellowship.org. You'll see a radio program link, and all our radio programs are videoed, so you can actually watch us. And I believe you would be encouraged. We have identified the programs. Many people in our church have been delivered from so many areas, from drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, depression. It goes on and on and on. But through it all, God delivers us. It's amazing how God is a God that can redeem and restore our life. No matter what pit we've ended up in, God is able to restore us and redeem us and bring us to the life that He's called us to have. So today I have someone from our church who also wants to share with you. Her name is Kevijah. God has truly restored and redeemed her life, and I believe you'll be amazed at how much God was able to pull her out of a terrible situation and restore her life to a wonderful life. So we're going to hear from Kevijah. Go ahead, Kevijah.
I want to start off by saying I'm so grateful and so excited to be able to share what God has done for me. So when I was born in West Philadelphia, I have 2 brothers, I have 2 sisters. When I was 6, my mom, she's from a little area close to Wilmington called Burgall, we moved. She brought us back down south. She met my father in Philadelphia. When we moved down here, I was a grade ahead of myself in school. I was in the 2nd grade. I was picked on a little in elementary school because I was a little bit different coming from up north. I remember just some of the phrases I used, some of the terms I used just wasn't what the children used around here. As you know, I went on through elementary school. I remember in the 5th grade, I think I got in my first fight. Of course, being picked on, it builds up the anger and the frustration. You can never do anything to be accepted, kind of thing. And but in the 5th grade, I remember more specific situations because there was a little boy. Looking back at it now, I think this is so ridiculous because I was in the 5th grade. These are situations 5th graders should never have to encounter, but I'm afraid it probably happens often. But there was a boy that I liked, and he liked me. Then come to find out he had a girlfriend, and so I didn't want to like him anymore. Well, he was kind of popular, and he got everybody to start picking on me. So that was a very rough time, and it was a hard wave of picking on because it was like when I came around, everybody went away. And, you know, as children, it's, I guess, impressionable. And so things at home weren't really great. My mom and my dad, they were like in and out of their relationship. And when my dad was there, he did spend time with me, but he wasn't, sad to say, he wasn't there a lot. There was abuse in our home. But also being a child, it's like you kind of know something's wrong, but that's all you've ever known. So you just think that's life. I was pretty sad, pretty heartbroken, always felt lonely. So anyway, I remember getting in my first fight when I was in probably about the 5th grade. And then I went on, 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade. Things just got worse in my life as far as being sad and feeling left out. Being that I was a grade ahead of myself in elementary school, I was always big for my size. I was 10 years old. I wore size 10 shoes. I was always pretty big for my size. So I often got called names about that, doofy and big, and and I was not very graceful. So those things just make you feel so bad about yourself. When I got to So anyway, in middle school, I did get in a couple more fights. And when I got in the ninth grade, I was 13. There came another situation with a guy, I guess you could say. That was another devastating time in my life because I was a freshman at 13, and then he was a senior. I guess backing up a little bit, we went to church some. We didn't go to church a whole lot. When I got older, I learned that the reason why we had seasons of going to church is because we didn't have a lot. We were kind of poor. So if we had clothes to go, my mom would take us. But if we didn't have the appropriate clothes, she didn't take us to church. But my dad would get up on Sunday mornings and make us watch a show on like a TV church program called Herbert W. Armstrong. So anyway, I guess we were in a season where we were going to church. I was in the ninth grade, and there was a guy that was a senior that I liked. But it was all out of the lust of the flesh. It was not, and he had a mutual interest in me. But being I was a freshman, I did not know that he already, here again, had a girlfriend. And so and he went to the church that we were going to. So I went to choir practice. My mom let him bring me home, and then things happened, and his girlfriend found out. She was in the 10th grade. Her sister was a senior also. Her sister began picking on me really bad about this. And me being a freshman, you feel like you have to establish yourself. You're at a new school. And so in order not to go through this whole 4 years and people think I'm just somebody to mess with and pick on, and I'm just this or that, I became very aggressive and I assaulted her. It was a pretty violent act. I ended up going to the detention center after that, which is, if you don't know, a detention center is like, because I was 13, you can't go to take a 13-year-old to jail. So I went to the detention center, which is for juveniles. And while I was there, I feel like I'm going back and forth, but when we moved down south from up north, we moved on a dirt road next to my grandmother. So my mom she really had us under tight restraints. We were not, I was not exposed to very much. I mean, the most I ever got exposed to was on television. So when I got to the detention center, it was like a whole world was opened up to me. I heard things, I saw things that I never dreamed of or knew of even existed. And there again, I have another blow even while I'm there, as far as my distrust for people, my distrust especially for men and boys, because there was a staff member there that came after me. I had never smoked marijuana. I had drank a little bit, but it was always just a little, and it was sneakily. But there was a staff there that came after me. He actually brought me marijuana. He brought me beer, brought me cigarettes, and I actually got drunk in the detention center. First time I'd ever been exposed to anything or experienced anything like that. I was there for several months, and when, until court, and then I ended up going to a maximum security training school. And so the name of the school was C.A. Dillon. At that time, it was a co-ed training school. I think it was the only maximum security training school in North Carolina. So, and I'll just describe it to you a little bit. It was a building, and it had a barbed wire fence around it. There were 3 different cottages. One cottage was for girls. The other 2 cottages were for the boys. The cottage was locked. Each cottage had 3 wings. each wing was locked. They each had living rooms. Each living room was locked. Then you go down to a hallway that was also locked with cells, individual rooms that were also locked. So that was where I was for the next 3.5 years. And there again, I got a whole nother, I guess, education about street life and different things of that sort. When I got there, I had already a reputation when I got there. I don't know how, but some of the girls knew what I was there for. And so that was not my heart. That was not really the kind of person I was. Honestly, I was really full of fear, very afraid, far away from my mom. And so, but I still played the part, and I did things when I got there that I was ashamed of. That it wasn't right. It was mean things, but it was just to fit in with the girls that were there. But even at that, because of the seriousness of what I was there for, I was told that I could end up in a women's penitentiary if I did not do well there. C.A. Dillon was kind of like I guess you could say a last stop for juveniles. A lot of the girls there had already been in the other training schools and had failed there. And so this was like their last stop. So I was pretty, I didn't do some things, that was a restraint, I guess you could say, for me. I was a lookout person for other things that would happen. And then when I was probably about 16, excuse me, we had a church service. Now, different churches would come out and they would provide church services for us. And we didn't a lot of times have enough staff members working there to let these girls stay out in their room or in the living room, and then these girls go down to Vespers, is what we called it, or the church service. So there were times when we'd have to get locked in our rooms so the other girls could go to the church service. For some reason this time I just thought, I'm going to go to Vespers, versus being locked in my room. So I went down to Vespers. I can't really remember what was preached, but for some reason at the end of the service, I stood up. At the end of the service was the altar call. And I stood up and said the sinner's prayer and, accepted God in my heart is what I felt at that time. And when I got back to the cottage, I remember this seriousness came on me, like, what have you done? You cannot play with God. This is very serious what you did. And I thought a minute. And so the only thing I knew to do was to read the Bible, get my Bible. And I don't remember if it was my Bible, if it was a Gideon Bible that was there. I just don't remember. But I got the Bible. Only thing I knew to read was Psalms 27. Well, no, the 23rd Psalm is all I knew to read. So I read that. And then I flipped over to the 27th Psalm. And at the end of that Psalm, it said, wait on the Lord, be of good courage. He will strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. And it was like I knew that was the first time God had ever spoken to me, that I was aware and conscious that is the voice of God coming to me. Because prior to that, the years that I had been in the facility, I started feeling like there wasn't a God. If there was a God, why am I still here? And just backing up a little bit, because I was always told while I was there, if you do this, if you do that, you can go home. If you do this, you can go home. And I jumped through all the hoops. I did everything possibly. I even broke records in that facility as far as getting different levels and getting so many points. And but I was still there. And what I didn't realize at the time is that some of the girls were horrible and they still got to go home, but there was only a certain amount of time they could be there for what they had done, whether they did good or bad. So God was telling me, just wait on him. He was going to strengthen me, because it was tough. It was rough. Some of the staff were not even nice. So, but then on the other hand, after I purposed I was going to start serving God, it opened up a whole nother world of people picking on me, which was a big thing. I did not like being talked about and people picking on me. But for some reason, it didn't faze me like it had when I was in elementary school coming up. It just did not have the punch. And I mean, these girls could call you some names that you thought it was unbelievable, the things that they began to call me after I started giving my heart to God. But it didn't faze me. I didn't want to fight them. I started reading my Bible. I started believing what the Bible said, that if they persecuted Jesus, of course they're not going to like me because I'm walking with Jesus. That these are things I thought at that time in my life, and it didn't faze me because I had so many points, and I was actually had reached level 5. I was able to go down in my room and be away from that a lot. But then something miraculous happened in a cottage. It's the cottage I was in. A lot of girls started giving their hearts to God, and it was pretty amazing. And not only that, some of the staff members that were so crude, they started giving their hearts to God too, and it was utterly amazing. And so I had people that I could go to if I had questions about the Bible or anything. It was pretty amazing because the staff members started changing. So when I was about 17, probably 17 and a half is when I was released and able to come home. When I came home, my mom had started going to a church in Wilmington, and I started going to that church with her. Well, when I went, the pastor was preaching things that it was like she was reading my mail, like unbelievable. It was just speaking directly to my heart, the things that she ministered on. There was also a time when they had prayer at this church that I was at, and which is causing me to have to back up one more time. While I was in training school, I had these times after I gave my heart to God that I would lay on my face, pillow my face in my pillow, and I would just groan or just, I can't really describe the hurt or the pain I had on the inside of me. And that really relieved me, and I knew from reading my Bible about Romans 8, I didn't think I was crazy for what I was doing. I felt like it was a type of prayer because Romans 8 talked about the groanings that were too deep for utterance. I had such a pain. I had such a pit. I didn't have words to even pray to say what I felt or what was going on. But I knew when I did that, I felt relief on the inside. So when we went to this church, I heard a lady praying just like that. And I was pretty shocked. So it was like the first confirmation that was my church was the preaching. It was undeniable. And then when I heard that lady, I thought it all bore witness. I knew this was my church where I was supposed to be. Probably the year after that, I went to a seminar. This church was affiliated with the Word of Faith. So the next year, me, the pastor, and a couple of the young people came to a youth seminar here at the Word of Faith. And I felt such love just walking in the building, not hearing a message, seeing the smiles on people's faces. I felt the love of God. It was just unbelievable. I was just so excited. I heard people praying with their whole hearts, and I went home after that seminar a changed person. I received prayer at that seminar, and I was and somewhere in my heart I knew eventually I was going to live here. I loved it. I went home, and of course there was things, because the way I had lived all the way up until that time in my life was, if I was angry, I would punch a wall, I would do whatever. But as time went on, these things, they started leaving me. And one thing I'm very grateful for, the knowledge and learning at the Word of Faith, is that demons are real. They are actual forces that can oppress you and weigh you down and hold you down. They actually can speak to you. And because I was always so depressed and so miserable on the inside, there were times I would think about killing myself. I literally thought I was a crazy woman. And this is after I had given my heart to God. But when I learned that it was a spiritual battle, my life changed. I was actually excited to know that, okay, so this is not the way I am. These are demons, and it can change, that would oppress and just make you feel these ways. So I continued to get prayer. My life continued to change, and then God started also teaching me about my will, because there's scriptures that talk about whoever you yield to is who you become a slave to. And I had certainly become a slave to some of these fits of rage and anger. And so by the grace of God and by the help of God, he started walking me out of these things where I could go to him if I felt a fit of rage, or I could go to him and ask him to help me. And he began to remove these things out of my life till, I don't feel that way anymore. And it's a miracle. It's such a miracle. I don't feel angry. I don't feel the frustration. Jesus has become so real in my life, as far as he's actually there for me. I can go to him and he will help me with whatever is going on in my life. I was very hurt. Didn't like, this was something I said all the time. I don't like people, and I don't like men even more. So, for me, I just was done with everybody, basically. So when I came here, God spoke to my mom and I probably in 2008 to move here. And so after we moved here, shortly after that, God put a man in my life, and his name is Willie. He is such a blessing. He's such a blessing. When God put us together, he was going through some things. And then shortly after that, I was going through some things as far as my health, and he was there for me. And I realized that all men were not dogs, that there are godly men, and he blessed me with one. And in 2013, he and I got married. And he's been such a blessing. I'm very grateful to God for him. Our children, he had children by a previous marriage. I'm grateful for the children that he and I have. They are my children. I have a grandson now. I'm very grateful for that. And when we moved here in 2008, God blessed me with a wonderful job. I have the best co-workers. I'm grateful for them. They will do anything they can for you. I felt like I never could have friends. People never liked me, never wanted to be around me. So I feel accepted at my job. I love my church family. I love Sam and Jane. I love Kim Waits. I love the people that God put in my life here. There is not a group of people like them. And I'm just so grateful. I have been helped tremendously at the Word of Faith. Yes, God worked miracles in my life prior to moving here, but it has been undeniable, the changes that have happened in me, and the friends and the comfort and the support that I have received since I've been here is just, you wouldn't find it anywhere. So I'm very grateful to God. And
thank you so much, Kevijah. You're a miracle. When you were sharing this, I can't help but think what a nice person you are. You're always so full of love. You're always so happy, and I'm just thinking what a transformation God did in your life. We would never know about your past because God has so changed you. And I was shocked when I heard all the things that you went through growing up, all of the hurt, and then all of the anger, and then all of the rage, and then you had some violence, and it was like I was talking about somebody else because that doesn't fit you at all, because you truly have let God change your heart, and you're becoming exactly who God wants you to be. And what a miracle that is. This is just one of those, another example of how God has the power to restore our lives. I love to read in the Bible about how God is a redeemer. Jesus is described as a redeemer. He came to redeem mankind. And so many times we were all slaves to something in our lives. And when Jesus came, he paid the price for us so that we can be redeemed. He was our redeemer. He paid the ransom with his blood. And so whatever pit we were in, whatever mess we were in, however our lives were going down the wrong path, and our personalities were all wrong, full of hurt, full of anger, and all of these things that we did that were wrong, it actually says that Jesus Christ himself paid the price for us with his blood so that we can be redeemed. And that means that we're restored. That means that we're actually loosened from all of the slavery that we were in before. He redeemed us to be the children of God who we're called to be, and he restores our life when he does that. So what a powerful message, what an encouraging message. When you were there in the juvenile detention center and you didn't know what to do, you turned your heart to God. God spoke to you in Psalms 27 about be strong, wait on the Lord. And that's a powerful word for all of us today. So thank you again for listening. This is Word of Faith, and we've been sharing with you what wonderful things God's done in our lives. I hope that you will continue to listen to our program. We are here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:30 to 9. Thank you very much.